Today we have a special edition of FastLap featuring two highly decorated racing heroes. The first withstood 85 laps around the notorious Nordschleife of the Nürburgring. It drove more than 2,100 kilometers to victory. The other's pathway to victory lasted 527 laps around the asphalt at Spa-Francorchamps. It prevailed after nearly 3,700 kilometers. And both of these motorsport veterans serve under the command of a single man, Christian Menzel. He's been racing professionally for more than 30 years. He's at home on the world's racetracks, but he lives in the Eifel region of Germany. Today, Christian Menzel is taking two GT3 racers on a very special racetrack. This track is called Bilsterberg. It's what we call an up-and-down route, so it has similar characteristics to the Nordschleife. It's like a roller coaster, a lot of fun to drive, very exciting, but also very strenuous. And of course, the entire venue is just beautiful. There are three places I'm always happy to be. I love the Nürburgring, I like to race in Spa, and I enjoy coming to Bilsterberg. I have to admit it. Located near Bad Driburg, the track has been in existence since 2013. Formula One architect Hermann Tilke was responsible for the layout. Reason enough to put on a full racing suit. That's right, you haven't seen me in one of these very often. But today, I have the honor of driving two very special vehicles. These two cars won two very important 24-hour races this year, namely the two most difficult events in GT3 racing, the Nürburgring and Spa-Francorchamps. The weather was rainy for the 2020 edition of the 24-hour race at the Nürburgring. Various brands and teams battled it out, and in the end, the winner was a BMW M6 GT3 from ROWE Racing. Only a few weeks later, the racing team had reason to celebrate again, namely at the 24-hour Classic in Spa. This time, the winning car was a Porsche. Two 24-hour races, two cars, two victories. Nobody had ever achieved that before. It was a one-of-a-kind accomplishment. So of course, you have to relish that kind of victory because it's hard enough to win just one of these races. And then both of them in the same year. That was absolutely amazing. Awesome. I tip my hat to these gentlemen. Both races were run under extreme conditions, terrible weather, which means the entire team has to work together that much better. They won the race at the Nürburgring, which nobody would have bet €5 on them doing. But thanks to a comprehensive team strategy and some clever tricks, they got the best possible performance out of the tires. And all of a sudden, this M6 from ROWE Racing step by step made its way to the front and ultimately, in fact, to the lead. Sensational. Alexander Sims, Nick Katzberg, and Nick Yellowly took turns driving the car. BMW has been offering the M6 GT3 for races since 2016, and ROWE Racing has always relied on the model from BMW. And as one might expect, the hero has a few battle scars to show for its victory. Now that right there is the original, authentic 24-hour dirt. This is what the car looked like the moment it crossed the finish line. That's a time-honored tradition. At the end of the race, the cars get a coat of varnish to preserve that moment in time. This one will probably end up in a museum somewhere, although it actually looks relatively clean from the front. It's the side where you can see how much it's really been through. Holy moly, cool. But you can see some of the mechanics kept the start number clean. Gotta love it. Awesome. It's a typical GT3, a perfect specimen of a familiar model. The wheels themselves are not that big, they're only 18-inch wheels. I mean, look at the cars coming off the assembly lines. They often have 20 or 21-inch wheels. But the rule book says all contestants have to use 18-inch wheels. They did a good job here with the wheel arch ventilation, which gets the hot air out of the car here over the hood. Now take a look at how many coolers there are in here. Holy moly. Water cooler, intercooler, it's all in there. A 4.4-liter V8 bi-turbo with a maximum of 585 horsepower is under the hood. Some of the parts are mass-produced, which is beneficial to the durability of the engine. There are some racing cars where the engine is driven for 15,000 or 20,000 kilometers. I know a good story about ROWE. They used to use an SLS for years. Michael Zehe, the boss, sent one to run in the NLS and the 24-hour race. The Mercedes has a 6.3-liter V8 engine. 50,350 kilometers around the Nordschleife, and they topped it all off with a win. They never even opened up the engine, just kept it well lubricated. And I've got to tell you, that is pretty cool. The balance of performance, or BOP, was designed to maintain parity between competing GT3 cars with different concepts, like rear-wheel drive or front engine. It's done by adjusting the car's weight or performance parameters. GT3 race cars are a few hundred kilograms lighter than production models.
Krass, oder?
Crazy, huh? Seriously. The door weighs nothing.
Wiegt nichts. Ja.
And that's another aspect. The way they try to get the center of gravity lower on these cars. You want to get down to the weight limit. These cars have a weight of about 1,300 kilograms, depending on the balance of performance. So pretty much all that's left is carbon fiber parts. This entire door construction is made of nothing but carbon fiber. Fantastic. The advantage is that if the door gets broken, you can switch it out really quickly in a pit stop. That would have been impossible in the old days, and the driver can even do it himself if he's not a complete idiot. Hey, I know how to do some body work, okay? But it is a difficult chore. It's better when there's two of you. Time to get in. Fantastic. And the first thing I notice is I'm sitting too low. Now that's something you never heard from me before, right? Really, much too low. I need a pillow or something to raise me up. But other than that, it's like the modern race cars always are. You can remove the steering wheel if need be, and there are relatively few buttons on the steering wheel. Radio controls, traction control can be adjusted here, intensity, that's how much TC should be applied. Drink, the flasher, very important for overtaking, windshield wipers. Now that's something we'll definitely need, because the weather at Bilsterberg is cold and wet, and the track doesn't dry up very fast. That doesn't make it any easier here. And the next thing is, if you're just taking it easy, you'll never get anywhere. So I'm kind of forced to pick up the speed, to increase the temperature in the tires and get the brakes hot. That's always a very fine line. Somebody put their hand on my shoulder a minute ago and said, "We do expect you to return this car in the same condition we gave it to you. Same shape, same color, just like it is." So, because I assume this car is on its way to a museum, I wouldn't want it to have a plaque saying, "Crashed by Christian Menzel, FastLap 2020. We can't let that happen. After all, this warrior has already won its big battle. Now it just has to contend with a little skirmish under Commander Menzel. So, down to the finish line. Last curve and second gear. In terms of performance, it's doing just what I expected it to. We've got about 500 horsepower. And I have to tell you, it's not over-the-top spectacular. I'm used to this. And the traction control is working too, but I still have to make a few corrections. The M6 is driving using the balance of performance set up for the Nordschleife of the Nürburgring. For safety reasons, the protocol calls for reduced power for GT3 race cars. Wonderful. This is very nice. The car's running very smoothly. You can tell this is the Nordschleife specifications. It perfectly compensates for all these little bumps. The suspension is very soft, which is good on Bilsterberg. This track has a lot of depressions, therefore you need more spring travel in the suspension. The car has to bounce in and out cleanly. Uphill and down, full throttle curves and blind crests. Bilsterberg and the Nordschleife have a lot in common. especially when you're talking about mixed conditions. Oh, holy moly, that is slippery. Because the track is so hard to get a handle on, the BMW is running on rain tires at the moment. I'm surprised the rain tires we mounted are behaving so cleanly. There's no smearing at all. This is a Michelin P2G, a tire for heavy rain. The main battle line is drying out. Time for the warrior to switch weapons, from rain tires to slicks. The helpers in the pit are used to working under time pressure, but now the pressure is coming from Commander Menzel. He wants to floor it. Do we have enough gas? Sure. Now that we're ready to go, what do we have to watch out for? Basically, it's a case of whoever takes the most risk, whoever's got the biggest balls, will get faster and faster as the tires get hotter and hotter. That's all there is to it. You have to be bold and confident. Just keep pushing until you get the tires in the right traction range. That window is between 80 and 90 degrees centigrade. Hard to achieve when the outside temperature is under 10 and there are still wet patches on the track. Yeah, I felt it there already. That was some wheel spin. But I have to keep pushing. Otherwise, the tires will cool down, and that's exactly what I don't want. And now the BMW M6 GT3 takes to the track for the last time. The track is 4.2 kilometers long and has 19 curves. Inclines make up 26% of the track, and downhill gradients 21%. Car and driver ready for a fast lap. Christian Menzel and the ROWE Racing M6 are ready to face the challenge. A race against time, a fast lap. The first difficulty? The first braking zone leads through a slight left turn, then there's a very tight right turn. To achieve optimum traction on the wet track, Menzel shifts up sooner than expected. The short shifting technique prevents the wheels from spinning at maximum power. Inside the car, there's a sequential 6-speed transmission mounted across the rear axle to improve the weight distribution. In the most difficult section of the track, called the mousetrap, the driver has to be especially patient. There's a steep decline, then it goes back uphill. If you give it too much gas, you'll end up on the guardrails. There are a few bumps on the back straight. This is where the M6 reaches its top speed of more than 220 kilometers per hour before heading into the test of courage, a long left that allows for a lot of speed depending on your aerodynamics and how brave you are. Just before the final turn, there's a double braking zone. In the chicane, the car accelerates again briefly, then the M6 turns toward the finish line. And what does the stopwatch say? It's 1:51:26, a good result. The ROWE M6 did the job again.
Das ist der Michael Zehe.
This is Michael Zehe, managing director of ROWE. We know each other because we were actually opponents for many years. But I was always happy to see him and his team. They make a good impression on the track. No attitude, no exaggeration. And I must say, Michael, I was really happy for you guys this year. Thank you.
Motorsport
Is motorsport just a marketing tool for you? Or is it also a technology platform where you can try out your lubricants and the rest of your products? On the one hand, of course, it's clear you only get marketing impact if you win races. Nobody is interested in the also-rans, although there's a lot of good sports going on in the midfield. That's usually how it is. We do a lot of testing around the races. After each race, we look at the oil samples from the engine, the transmission, the lubricants in the drive shafts, steering fluid, and so on. And all that data goes back into our manufacturing production. Michael Zeyer founded his lubricant company in Rheinhessen in 1995. Professional motorsports have played an important role for the company since 2011. What I notice about this car is that there's this extended splitter in the front, which of course means a lot of downward force, but then there are no flaps on the side, although it would be possible. We could also put some flaps on the car. Both alternatives are homologated. So you can drive with or without flaps, but in Spa they decided, probably for reasons of top speed, against the flaps. Or did it just get knocked off? Oh no! That one's gone. It got lost during the race. There is still a flap here. Did I just make a fool of myself? The second 24-hour winner has a 6-cylinder boxer engine with a capacity of 4 liters. Maximum horsepower, 550. If I run my finger over this one, it's dirty. This car hasn't been conserved yet. It will also be sprayed with a clear varnish to preserve this look for posterity. Now, when you look at these two cars, you're looking at two contrasting concepts. They couldn't be more different. The special thing about the Porsche is that the engine is behind the rear axle. And over here, the engine is in the front. So we have two completely different vehicles. In addition, we have a 4-liter naturally aspirated engine in this one, a conventional 6-cylinder boxer. A turbocharged engine has much more power with lower revs. Thanks to the boost, it can build up power faster than a naturally aspirated engine, which needs higher revs. The 911 GT3 R from the 991-2 series is the younger of the two long-distance fighters. ROWE Racing enters Porsche cars in the GT World Challenge and the 24-hour race at Spa. The engine's better. You can tell the rules in Spa allow for more basic power. Of course, subjectively, you have higher revs from the engine, which is always nice. It just has more juice. And you can feel that the engine is breathing freely. The BMW felt a bit constricted due to the different balance of performance for the Nordschleife. There's no denying it. That's why it's difficult to compare these two very special race cars. Still, they have both proved themselves on the track and require a professional driver at the wheel. Watch out, Menzel, be careful, don't blow it. There are camera teams here, they'll be laughing at me. Oh, that's slippery. Ooh, it's pretty slick driving up this mountain, holy moly. Bilsterberg is drying out, but a few spots around the turns are still slippery. So the motto remains, onward and upward. Or as the racing drivers say, keep on pushing. You always hear the engineers telling their drivers to push, push, push. Well, I've got no one to tell me that now. I have to keep myself motivated. It's all about keeping the Pirellis at the right temperature. In combination with the impressive wing, the slick tires provide the necessary grip. Wow, this is wild. And the G-forces. I'm already 1.5 seconds faster again. Our conclusion after test driving the two GT3s? Great cars, great sounds, a lot of emotional appeal, a lot of downforce, fantastic drive, the full Monty. Did I leave anything out? It was all there. good. Back to the box. Ah, I'm starting to feel it in my neck. No kidding, these cars really give you some G's. You can tell the setup is a lot harder than for the BMW. And that's because in Spa, this car is configured for the 24-hour race in Spa, you have a flat track. You're dealing with completely different spring rates, completely different spring travel paths. The shock absorber settings have much harder compression and rebound, and that means driving this car is a much bigger challenge. The Porsche 911 GT3 R is ready for a fast lap. The winner of the 2020 Spa Long Distance Classic will take to the track once more in a race against time. The Porsche has a bit more speed than the BMW as it brakes for the first turn. Both of these cars use a sequential 6-speed transmission that's controlled using shift paddles. Because the ideal line is dry, pilot Menzel can use the revs more aggressively and build up more speed in the curves. The 911 turns into the mousetrap about 5 seconds ahead of the M6. Then there's what they call the Steilwand, a steep straight that ends in a fast-driven, blind right turn. Carry as much speed as possible through the Clubhouse S to get the best exit on the following straight called Pomzahura. The Porsche is on fire. Maximum speed, 230 kilometers per hour. The GT3 R flies through the test of courage nearly 20 kilometers per hour faster than the BMW. In Spa, the car was driven by Laurens Vanthoor, Earl Bamber, and Nick Tandy. But now, we want to know how Christian Menzel is doing. His time is 1:42.94. The Porsche claims the title for fastest lap around Bilsterberg. It doesn't really matter. They were both fun to drive, because you're trying to get the most out of the vehicle under the prevailing conditions. And I was 9 seconds slower in the BMW because the track was that much slower. I still had to fight the car a little, take it to the limit, and then have the confidence to see what's possible and what's not. What I noticed, and what was very interesting, is that the Porsche just has a lot more power. I could really feel it. And it's not just because the BMW engine is particularly bad or the Porsche engine is particularly good. It all goes back to the BOP, which means you have to drive the Nürburgring with restrained engine performance. At the finish line, for example, and that's a pretty good comparison, I pushed the braking point back a bit farther towards the corner. At the point where the BMW was doing 202 clicks, the Porsche was already doing 211. There was a lot more steam in the boiler. When it comes to top speed, there was just 7 clicks difference between the two GT3 competitors. No matter whether you're in the BMW or the Porsche, you don't have the pure driving feeling, which means you don't so much feel the tires and the suspension working. The aerodynamics take over all that, and it's like you're being pressed down onto the track. And that's a totally different feeling from when you're driving with very little or no aerodynamic force. Both of these cars provide plenty of downforce, but the Porsche builds up a little more G-force, thanks to better cornering grip on the dry track. That was a lot of fun. And we were not just fooling around here. Not in all the turns, partly because it's sometimes dangerous with slicks on wet patches. And the guide rails are very close to the track here, and on Nürburgring too. Wherever conditions allowed, I was able to push these cars to the limit, and I would really like to express my gratitude for giving us the opportunity to do that today, for letting me drive these two victorious vehicles. It was, of course, very important to us that they both come back in one piece. Yeah, I knew what to do. And he did it perfectly. Two legendary race cars say goodbye to the former ammunition depot on which Bilsterberg was built. They get to rest on their laurels. Christian Menzel, on the other hand, is already on the lookout for the next thrill.